Salutations all, this is Christy Thomas, and this is a video lesson, but think of it as a video lesson Cliff Notes version of the communication process. The communication process is the foundation of communication, of human communication, public speaking, whatever the case may be. It is your foundation. So if you think of communication in the sense of building a pyramid, you need a really strong base to build up. And that's what the communication process is. This is the basis of all of our communication. I will say that repeatedly, and you'll probably say it in your sleep by the time the course is over, but I have uploaded previously recorded videos. I'm doing another one just because I like to update videos and presentations. So I have a couple whiteboards that I'm going to pull up and show you to help break it down. But again, this is like a Cliff's Notes, like a very abridged, quick version of the communication process. So depending on what textbook you're looking at, what theory you're studying, there's different scholars have added on to the theories or how it's presented, but for the bare bones of it is all pretty much the same. Sometimes different terminology is used. I'm just going to use the terminology that I go with. So let's go ahead and get into it. The communication process itself is between at least two people actively. It can be more, but let's think of it in that sense. So you have a sender and a receiver. The sender is the one who's creating the message, the source. So that when the process starts, you have the source. And within that realm is also encoding, or so they can be called the source. They're creating the message, they're encoding. What do I mean by encoding is that they're presenting a message, and based off of what they know, that's language, terminology, slang, and it could be like information that they know, also based off the person that they know, like there could be inside jokes and stuff like that. They think of the message that they want to send. All right, they figure out they know what they're saying, they know what they're doing. They then choose a channel. A channel is the means of how you send your message. This could be face-to-face, or if you'll see my boards, it says FTF, and that just means face-to-face. That's if you're talking to another person in reality to their face. So that's pretty straightforward. Or you can choose EMC, which is electronic mediated communication. Now that has a whole bevy of ways to communicate. There's text messaging, emails, direct messaging. You think of all social media platforms. So, you know, there's Facebook messaging, tweeting, Snapchatting, whatever the case may be here. Like I said, there's all kinds of forms of social media that all falls under electronic media communication. Also in channels, there's telephone, if you actually pick up and call someone. And think old school too, a way to communicate would be writing a letter. Okay, you've picked your channel, you sent it, it's then received. So you have the receiver. This is the person who takes the message, and then, you know how we encode it to send it? The receiver then decodes, which is just them taking in the information and breaking it down off of what they know. So this is everything in their world that they use to break it down. So it can stop there, or they can send back with feedback. Okay, which I'm going to add to this board now that I'm thinking about it. Let's use a different color marker, because I'm all about the color coding. Really, I'm just having fun with markers this morning. Okay, maybe not. Oh, there it is. Sorry. Sorry. So we'll put feedback in here as well. All right. So the first board I'm going to show you is just some communication scholars, some textbooks, they show you these real simple models. sender, receiver. Some of it's straightforward. Sender, receiver, message, it stops. Some have it going circular because if you think about when you're talking to someone, it may be a continued conversation. And then sometimes it's to the receiver, back to from sender to receiver, back to sender, stop. So there's different versions of the process. Linear, circular, parallel linear, all that. And then also some scholars and some textbooks and some processes, if you like YouTube or Google or whatever the case may be while you're studying, they show it as a linear process. A to B, there you go. Some show it circular, please excuse my drawing, it's early. As a communication is ever continuous. And this I'm like doing in this little psycho portion. I use it as a circular. That's what I think of when I think of the comm process. Because a lot of times, yes, sometimes you will send a message and that's the end of it. But sometimes more goes into it. So let's have a full version. I can't fit my hoodboard on the screen. Anyway, the communication process. So let's start over here and work our way through. This is the source. This is the message that you're sending. So in the case of this video, I am the source and I'm sending you the message. I am using terminology and ideas and theories based off of different scholars. Based off of what I know, what I've learned, and how I'm choosing to interpret it. That's how I'm encoding it. And then I'm sending this via video. It'd be uploaded to Blackboard. So try to look over my board here. Uploaded to Blackboard, so I'm choosing EMC. You, the student, or whomever is watching this, is my receiver. You will then take the information that I am giving to you, and you will break it down on what you know is general. When I say what you know, it's not just educational wise on what you know when it comes to decoding. It's our life experiences also play into this, how we were raised, what we our belief system, all that, or our life experiences. I may have already said that, but I'm saying it again. All that comes into play when it comes into decoding. And it also on the relationship that you have with someone. You may have inside jokes or languages with some really close friends or family members. So your ways of encoding and decoding are apparent in this communication. You wouldn't send an email or a text to a buddy, or let's say a professor or your boss, the way you would to, a really close buddy. You may change up your choice of language or tone or what phrases you use. That's what we're talking about. That's what I really talk about when I talk about encoding and decoding. So let's get back to this. So you chose your channel. The receiver then decodes. After they decode, this is when I said feedback will come into play. Feedback can come back, can come back in both verbal and nonverbal. Now, what do I mean by that? So feedback, verbal, is the words that leave your mouth. If you're in a classroom setting, the teacher asks a question, the verb will be yes. Of course. No, I don't get it. Oh, that's, what comes out of your mouth. Nonverbal is sometimes intended and sometimes unintentional communication. What do I mean by that? If you're in a classroom setting and someone's giving a lecture, if someone falls asleep, that's a form of communication. It's a nonverbal form of communication. Now, it could mean A, the student's extremely tired. B, the student is extremely bored. There could be a plethora of other, but it is a nonverbal communication. So that's what I mean when I'm saying feedback can be both verbal and nonverbal. Think of it, if you're trying food for the first time, if someone makes you a dish and they're like, oh, this is a new recipe. You're like, oh, great, I can't wait to try it. And you take a bite. And if it's delicious, you're like, ah. Your face will probably show, this is pleasant to me. If it's not so tasty, your face may also show, this is not pleasant. Even though sometimes our verbal and nonverbal do not line up. That gets discussed more in the nonverbal sections of communication. But sometimes the verbal and the nonverbal, they don't coincide. They actually can be quite opposite. I'm sure I'm not sure. But perhaps you've been in a conversation with someone and they say one thing, but their body language and their face says something completely else. Oh, are you okay? Yeah, I'm fine. Their tone, the facial expressions, and maybe they push themselves away is telling you non-verbally, that's not lining up. They're not okay. So that falls into the realm of feedback, both verbal and nonverbal. I'm going to write that on our board because, you know, I like to put fun stuff. So in this little, I'm going to put it in a little box over here in the corner, and we'll label it feedback. Feedback can be both verbal and nonverbal. Okay, so back to our board. Receiver, decoded, feedback happens. Again, it can be your verbal and nonverbal. So feedback can be if there's a question asked, you can verbally answer it. Non-verbally, you know, you may say, oh, I totally get it, but then like maybe you have this really confused look on your face. Or if somebody, perhaps if they ask you to work over or an extra shift, and you're like, yeah, I'll do it, but maybe you're not too excited because who's on the shift with you, or maybe you're just really tired, but you're like, oh, it wouldn't hurt me to have another shift. Whatever the case may be here. So feedback happens, and this is where I say I do communication. Oh, look at that. If I back up far enough. Ha-ha! It's the small victories in life, folks. This is one of those days that I'm on the struggle bus. So this is where the circular portion of the communication process comes into play. The feedback, the decoding feedback happens. Then you can choose to send a new message back to the source. So I'm going to write in there message because the message, it's a continuation of the original message, but it's your version of the message. So we have feedback, and I'm going to put under decode message. Fun times, right? It's like art. So then we send it back. You can choose to go the same route of your channel. Like if you're in face-to-face, sometimes the communication is within a time frame that you can continue the conversation in face-to-face. But sometimes people are in a hurry and you're like, oh, okay, I gotta go to class. You want to meet up for lunch later? Oh yeah, great, that sounds great. Okay, well, I gotta go to class. You think about where you want to go, just hit me up. So then the message may be sent back via a text message or a phone call. So then the channels switch. So channels can be interchangeable within one loop of communication, so to speak. So you can start off in face-to-face and end it in electronic media. You can also say you're sending an email to someone. You're like, hey, I had a question. Can we meet? Yes, we can meet. How does 2 o'clock today sound? 2 o'clock today sounds great. And then that same message and idea continues on in face-to-face. But then also some theorists will say, some scholars will say, well, that you're completely starting a whole new process, a new message, if you do it in a different time frames. A lot of times I like to think if it's the same idea message, you changing your channels and it can be expanded. But I also get where they say each section, each moment is its own point in time process. All right, so you have your source. This is the original. The message originates. It's encoded by the person sending the message. It's then sent via channel, whatever channel you choose, to the receiver. The receiver then decodes. This is where feedback, a new message may form or happen. Feedback can come in the forms of verbal and nonverbal. They then choose to send. It can stop here and not go any further, or it can continue forth and go back via channel to the original sender. All right, so source, I'm going to put sender up here so like I said, there are different theorists and scholars, will give them all different names, and I'm just kind of about ready to lose my word in trying to incorporate the different names you may see in different texts or diagrams or theories. I post a Word document that has several different versions of it, but like I said, it's all, if you take all the different terminology and everything away, the basis of it is the same. And this is the building blocks of communication. So we have done our do-do-do. The last thing to come into play to chat about is noise. Noise, noise, noise. Dr. Seuss is How the Grinch Stole Christmas. And the noise, noise, noise. Anyway, sorry. I read that book a lot to my children. Noise can be external and internal. Now, I'm going to write that in here too because why not? So, external or internal. And then underneath that, I'm going to write physical or psychological. I think I spelled that right. Bear with me. I may have spelled psychological wrong. Noise can be external, internal, physical, or psychological. Now, what do I mean by that? All right. By being external or physical, it's the sounds that you actually hear that can interrupt communication. Say you're trying to talk to someone and you're having lunch somewhere, or you're having dinner, you're at a restaurant or a cafeteria or a food court or wherever the case may be. It's the background noise. It's the other diners. It's the employees. It's just the sounds of the restaurant. You know, it could be lights buzzing up ahead. It could be music, ambiance music. Anything that you could physically hear that would interrupt communication. Perhaps you're at a bar trying to like chat with someone and there's a game going on. So then you have the sounds of the games. You have the spectators who are there specifically to watch the game. So you have all that to interfere as well. If you're in a classroom, it could be shuffling in the classroom itself. The sound of lights. I don't know if you've been in classrooms, but the lights like zzz, that really crazy loud buzzing. Or depending the time of season, it could be the heating or air conditioning unit clunking on or off. People in the hallway. Maybe you hear the people in the classroom above you or beside of you and it's loud. Or if it's springtime, if it's warmer weather and it's grass cutting season, you could hear people cutting grass. Or if there's construction going on, that's what I'm talking about with external physical. It's what you hear out in the world. If you're at home and you're trying to talk to someone, it could be pure chaos. When I'm home and all of my kids are home and my husband is home, it is chaos. And what do I mean by that? It's not even intentional chaos. It's just my kids are young. So they're either running around, running off energy, being, young kids. And then there's TVs usually going on. And there may be sounds of cooking going on or sounds of the washing machine along with all of it. There's multiple things that could be going on in the house. So just your home life alone, that's external. So I don't really talk on the phone much when I'm home with when everyone's here, because it's either going to be I can't hear you, or I'm going to be like, hey guys, I'm on the phone. It's one of those constant, hey, I'm on the phone, let's keep it down for a hot second. That's not to say I don't talk to people, but text me unless it's a dire emergency. That's external. That's physical. Now, internal psychological noise is what can distract us from communicating. So this can be a plethora or a bevy of things as well. You could be super tired. Perhaps you have an early class and you're not a morning person. I am not a morning person. I have to wake up before my kids wake up in the mornings on school days. I drive my wildlings to and from school. I take them and pick them up. But in the mornings, it's a good idea for me to wake up prior to them waking up so that I can acclimate to life in the morning without having to try to acclimate them at the same time. Because if we all get up at the same time, it can be a little rough, because one of my daughters is also not a morning person. Neither is my son. So in order for me to wake them up gently, I have to wake myself up gently. my rambling from that is that maybe you're not a morning person, you have a morning class, or you have to be at work super early. So you could just be really tired. And that can affect how we listen, how we communicate, you know. Because there is a difference, and that gets discussed in listening sections of courses, is there is a difference between hearing and listening. And you're like, but it's the same thing. No, it's not. Some people you kind of hear, and you've been in conversations with them, they're like, but they're not really listening. Like, they're not really listening to what the message you're trying to give them or the words you're saying to them. That's what I mean by that. Or it could be midday. Perhaps you're hungry, or it could be evening time. So, you know, hunger, you're getting hangry. That plays a part. You're distracted. Maybe you are in just a really funky place. You're in a bad mood, you're sad. And sometimes we have reasons why we're sad or we're in a weird place. But sometimes it's just a mood. And that's okay. But that can affect us. Just like if we're in a super happy place and elated, that can affect, because maybe we want to share our news. Perhaps we got a job promotion. Or perhaps, you know, you got a new car. Or you found out that you're graduating in the spring. Or you made Dean's List. Or you aced a test that you thought you failed. Or you got a raise at work. Or, you know, some great news is happening in your family. Perhaps you are buying a house or getting a new home. Or you're having an addition to your family. Or, you know, whatever brings joy and happiness, and you want to share it with the world. That can also affect our communication process, because we want to share, we want to be happy. So we have external physical, which is what we physically hear, what noises and sounds can interrupt and distract us. Internal psychological is what's going on the inside that can distract us and affect our communication. So that was loud. Let's review my very jumbly board now. The communication process. It starts with the sender. This is the source of the original message. The sender encodes a message. They choose what they want to say and how they want to say it based off of information that is given, their background experiences, what they know, what they feel, what they believe, and context of relationships with the person they're sending the message to. They then choose their channel, and channel can be face-to-face, electronic media communication, whatever it may be. So it could be you chit-chatting with someone, it could be sent in emails, text messages, social media platforms, on the phone, send a message, carrier pigeon, whatever the case may be here. Message in a bottle. You send your channel. So you send it to your receiver. Your receiver then decodes. It's the same as encoding, but reverse based off the receiver. They take what they know, the context of the relationship, all those things that come into play for encoding is the exact same for decoding. It's just now based off of the receiver. The receiver then chooses there's feedback is involved in the decoding process. This could be both verbal and nonverbal. Verbal are the words that leave your mouth. Nonverbal is everything else. So nonverbal is our tone of our words, our facial expressions, our body language, our proximity to others. Or when it comes to electronic media communication, it could be the emojis that you send, the GIFs, however you choose to pronounce that, memes, memes, pictures, goofiness, whatever. All that falls under nonverbal. You could be someone that just sends pictures and random messages to people like that all the time. That is in the verbal, nonverbal world of feedback. So then sometimes the message can stop here, or sometimes the receiver, after decoding feedback, sends a new elevated response message back to the receiver. It can be via the same channel or a different channel. And then in the midst of all this, you have noise, which is external, internal, physical, psychological. What's going on the outside? What's going on the inside? That, ladies and gentlemen, folks, is my version of the communication process. So, it's not my version. Like, I don't have a public, I do not have this, you know, published. This will not say Christy Thomas's version of the communication process. This is just my way that I'm choosing to encode and send it to you all. So there it is. Like I said, I've made several videos, but I like to update. But folks, this is the communication process breakdown. The way that I choose to break it down and explain it to you. Now also remember that the communication process is the foundation of all communication. It is what we build theories and ideas and patterns and terminology and principles. All that gets built up on this. If you think of it as a pyramid, it is the strong base, and then you go deeper into communication, more detailed as you build up to that point. So, folks, this beautiful board here is my version of how I'm giving you, how I'm encoding the information of the communication process to you. Again, this is building up on foundations of whatever communication course you are taking. I hope you have an amazing day. Thank you so much. Bye.